Look how old you've become.
Something far worse has happened to you.
You know what I've come for.
I know where you come from. Before you called yourself Kylo Ren.
The toys from Hasbro. We know you found them. And now you're going to give them to the children.
Do you remember the feeling of anticipation reaching a store's toy section, rushing to the Star Wars aisle, flipping through fully stocked pegs of figures, and finding that missing IG-88 to cause trouble for the rebel heroes in your basement? Well, too bad your kids will never enjoy the same experience. Because Hasbro's distribution system, wealthy collectors, and online ordering have destroyed the brick-and-mortar market for Star Wars figures. Toy runs are a thing of the past. Visit Target, Walmart, GameStop, any store that purports to carry Star Wars stuff, and you will encounter shortages. Empty displays, pegs with only 2 to 3 repeating characters. My oldest and I find only telescoping lightsabers and pop figures everywhere we go. Galactic Initiative will now expose the dark side of shopping for Star Wars toys. I'm your host, Jeff. David and Sean are with me. Let's begin. Hasbro, the main supplier of Star Wars toys in the U.S., bears some responsibility. From his first-hand insider experience, Sean will briefly explain the problems.
Yeah, so I spent several years as a retail liaison for Hasbro and working with companies like Target and Walmart, Best Buy, and GameStop. The problem that we had with retail merchandising is a many-headed hydra. Disney was directing Hasbro to manufacture a certain type of toy in a certain quantity. And therefore, we, as a company, had to sell those toys to the retailers. Initially, in 2015, when The Force Awakens was released, there was, of course, a lot of interest in new Star Wars. Everybody bought everything. But as disenfranchisement in the fan base translated into lack of interest, Disney and Hasbro kind of doubled down on some of the product that they were making, which negatively impacted retailers because they were not being sold. Inside the industry, Hasbro and Disney believed that people just weren't buying them because they were oversaturated, when in fact they weren't buying them because they weren't interested. As more time went on, less figures were manufactured. So now that we have product, or we have media that we're interested in, like The Mandalorian, the manufacturing has not caught up to the marketplace. So when we go out now and we look at the toy aisles and there's nothing there, a lot of it has to do with the fact that toys are being underproduced based on results of previous product, and brick and mortar retail has been negatively impacted by the coronavirus. A lot of the sales have been diverted from brick and mortar to online. Low production, high interest, lack of product actually getting to shelves has killed the toy run.
And I will say this. I mean, I have tried to do some toy runs in the last few years. Again, I was a little depressed because, like you mentioned, the aisles were empty. I mean, there was very, very little stuff, not even peg warmers. It was becoming more and more frustrating trying to find the exclusives that I really wanted. I remember back in the early 2000s when at Star Wars Insider magazines, they would have those exclusives there, and it was either you go on their website or you call them up and you place your orders, and it was very easy to be able to pick up the figures that you wanted that were exclusive. So it made me want to just go online and just purchase stuff from Evil Bay and other places that had the product that I want at reasonable prices.
So David, you're not impacted by the toy run then? You're not impacted by the lack of merchandise on the shelves because what you're looking for, they aren't making. But for people who want the people who wanted figures from the sequel trilogy films, you saw what Hasbro and Disney did over the course of the 3 movies. When The Force Awakens came out in 2015, 47 or 48 different 3 3/4, 5 POA figures released for that film. By the time we got to The Rise of Skywalker, there were none. Now, this is a company reacting to the market. But part of the reason why the market is the way it is twofold. One, when The Force Awakens came out, Disney directed Hasbro in their case selection to have half of their cases be Ray figures and Finn figures, and then everybody else. Hey, and in a case of 8 figures, you're going to get 2 Rays and 2 Finns, 1 3PO, 1 R2, 1 Kylo, and 1 Captain Phasma. So, even we talk about children and growing up Star Wars and people trying to get their children into it. You're still only going to buy your kid 1 Ray figure and 1 First Order Stormtrooper and 1 Finn. So it's not like there was this great insight into the market by Hasbro and Disney that suddenly there was going to be all these people just rushing to the store just to buy Ray figures. So that's the first problem. So then you start this cascading issue with retailers like Walmart, who are notoriously cutthroat when it comes to shelf space and to inventory buying. They'll take a flyer on your product initially, but if it doesn't sell right and if it doesn't sell fast, they'll never order from you again, or they'll drastically cut your access to their shelf space. And this is something that happened in my experience in working with Walmart. We went from having 12 linear feet of Star Wars on a toy aisle down to 4 in 5 years. They've lost 33% over a year and a half, every year and a half. The spring reset, the fall reset. 1 year we went from 12 to 8, and then we went from 8 to 4. And the only reason why it hasn't gotten smaller is because that's the shortest amount of negotiable shelf space that you can get for your product. One of the things that has gotten larger for Hasbro is the Marvel section, because those are the properties that are selling. Those are the things that the children are actually into. And so Star Wars has been a dwindling property. I mean, it went from $300 million a year in profit for the company down to a loss. They almost let the license go. They almost let Mattel pick up the license a couple of years ago. That tells you something.
Move along. Move along.
Wealthy collectors snatch up figures in alarming quantities, leaving nothing for other collectors and, most importantly, nothing for kids. These rich hoarders are never satisfied with 1 vintage Luke Skywalker. No, they need 10. Ask them about it, and they'll say, I bought extra for my friends. 1 for Roger, 1 for Christina, 1 for Ahmed, etc. Rarely true. In my experience, they just want them. In many cases, they resell a handful at significantly higher prices. Keep in mind, they don't need the money or the replication of figures. For early access, they make backdoor deals with store employees or take part-time jobs, so the new figures, they never even reach the pegs. Greed has a compassionless but well-groomed facade.
Oh, I would totally agree with that assessment. This, I guess people refer to them as scalpers or the resellers. It's an industry unto itself, and it's a profession unto itself. I do not use the word collector to reference those people. While they may have a collection, I don't really think of them as collectors in the traditional sense of the word. Someone who goes in and buys everything off the shelf and then uses the resale of that to make their collecting a net zero investment, or like you say, the people who claim to be doing it for the good of others when it's really just to line their own pockets. It's the greed and the lack of inventory. The dearth of toys becomes exacerbated because the guy who can go to Target at opening and stand in the toy aisle all day long and wait for someone to bring out a box, that guy ruins it for everybody because they just buy them all. And there has been recently a lot of anecdotal evidence that the employees are, if not buying these things themselves before they ever make it to the floor, they're actually stealing them. We, I think, have all had experiences where we go into a toy store or toys department of a store and talk to an employee, and we say, hey, look, can you check and see if you have any of these in inventory? And they say, oh, yeah, we've got 4 or 5. Let me go look. And they go in the back, and there's nothing to be found anywhere. So things are disappearing. And because the people who are working part-time or who are entry-level employees in a retail organization making minimum wage, they realize that this $19 figure is now selling for $200 on eBay. Now, is this every store? Is this every retailer? No, but there's enough incidences of this happening that it's becoming a problem. For example, the recent run on Cara Dune figures with Hasbro announcing they're not going to make anymore, and with the limited distribution that was there, these things are disappearing like crazy. But it's all coming together. Again, it's a confluence of events that's creating all these problems. The people who have the means, the quote unquote wealthy collector or the scalper or whatever, the people who have the means, they're cutting off an already limited supply of goods to market.
It is purely self-interest. That's the motivation here, self-interest. And they care nothing for the brand. And in capitalism, that they have no obligation to do so, but as a fan, it's such a short-sighted approach to the thing that you love. If you are cleaning out product that is already in short supply, you are destroying the future market. The backdoor deals, the part-time jobs, the employee purchases. We talk about kids don't play with action figures. How would we know? My kids aren't going to get a chance to play with Star Wars action figures because there are no Star Wars action figures on the pegs. They're gone. I don't know how my kid would react to a 3 3/4 Mandalorian figure. She's never seen one.
We have come across people who've gone into stores and have actually physically caught employees during their breaks going and purchasing these items. And it's not just one, it's like the whole box or the whole run of figures, whether it be Star Wars or G.I. Joe or whatever. And part of the problem is that these stores, there is no policy saying that you can't just set them aside and then purchase them, which I find absolutely ridiculous because it makes it even more challenging. Like you said, grandma wants to go and purchase a Darth Vader and can't find one. So my question, how does Hasbro fix this?
There's definitely ways that they can fix it, but they have to be allowed to fix it. Or with the selection of toys, the toys that are being made, all the stuff, the case breakdowns, the types of toys that are being made, all the stuff. A lot of that is directed by Disney Lucasfilm. And it's very interesting if you go back and you look at interviews with the people who work at Hasbro, who are in charge of the Star Wars line, and you see the presentations that they make at toy fairs. And they always say things like, we hear you, we hear the fans. But at the end of the day, they are working as a licensee or a license holder for another company. The items that are currently in market are being developed based on directives from Disney. If Hasbro wants to fix this problem, what they need to do, they need to negotiate some kind of autonomy. And they have to be able to do more market research, look at the media that's being produced, and come up with a better marketing plan for the figures. Make a case. If you're going to make wave one of a figure, right? If you're going to do like they've been doing, you have 3 waves of a figure, right? You have the wave that comes out in the fall in anticipation of a film. You have the wave that comes out when the film comes out right at Christmas, and then you have the wave that comes out after the film. And you make those cases, 8 figures per case, one of each. So there's 8 different figures in a case of 8. And then you buy multiple cases, you have more opportunity to sell out than if you have to buy multiple cases just to get one each of the other 7 figures. The dwindling sales, it's a self-perpetuating cycle. People, they make a bunch of crap nobody wants, and so they're like, oh, sales are bad. We shouldn't. We'll do less next time. We'll go from 50 figures down to 20, and then they make less, but they still make the same case decisions, and so then people are still stuck with peg warmers, and they're like, well, those really didn't sell. Well, we'll do less. And then we go from 20 to 5. Now we're all sitting around going, where are the Star Wars toys?
Yeah, I agree with everything Sean said. And stop producing multiple toy lines. Focus on 2 action figure lines. 3 3/4, 6-inch Black Series, consistent packaging, and Increasing supply would take away a lot of the issues we talked about with reselling and hoarding and backdoor deals. You eliminate the secondary markets because there's enough product to go around. Reselling gets you nowhere. You can only resell at retail because no one is struggling to get the figures.
Look, sir, droids.
Online ordering seems more egalitarian, but no, it excludes the same groups, children and small-time collectors. The times that new figures appear in online markets prevents most working people from getting a fair crack at them. Furthermore, one must track all the release dates and times like a bloodhound. Popular items sell out in seconds. People who set their own schedules, work from home, or do not work have overwhelming advantages.
Yeah, exclusives drive me nuts. And I think one of the bigger issues, well, I've got multiple issues with exclusives. First of all, if you're ordering a exclusive from a store, it shouldn't get canceled. It should get filled. The other issue I have with exclusives is some of these exclusives are coming out from Amazon, some are coming from Walmart, some of them are coming from Target. So like I mentioned before, I'm not big into the toy runs anymore. I've gone solely to pretty much online purchasing. You know, the last exclusive that I got it in a plastic bag. So I was a little perturbed because you have to go to different places to get these exclusives. Some of them are coming from stores that we don't necessarily have here in the States, so you have to rely on online, and it's frustrating. I get that stores pay a premium to release these figures, but like Jeff mentioned, the timing, the release of them, different companies are releasing different figures and trying to track them down, and distribution issues all around. So yeah, those are my big issues with the exclusives.
So first of all, the exclusive figure thing is not new. When we first started collecting Star Wars toys, Sears had its own run of exclusive playsets. That's where the blue snaggletooth comes from. One of the more coveted figures in Star Wars collecting. But the problem with exclusive figures nowadays is the problem we've described before with manufacturing and distribution gets amplified and exacerbated because you're dealing now with a smaller run of product and many retailers who are participating in this process. The online ordering problem is the retailers who do not block people from using bots. If I'm a savvy computer person who also happens to be a nefarious reseller, all I have to do is set up a program on my computer and it's just going to buy at say 10 a.m. on Tuesday when the figure comes out. So myself, if I'm able to, which isn't very often, but if I am able to maybe jump online, if I know that if it's 5 to 10 minutes after the product is released, it's gone because of the way the computers work at this point. It's the digital equivalent of grabbing the box out of the back room before it hits the floor. So the online situation is difficult. There are people, like you say, who just don't have access in general to the internet. Small children, right? Well-meaning parents who might want to take advantage of this opportunity or this method of ordering toys, they get boxed out because they have other things they have to do with their lives, go to work. Again, it's just a digital version of the same thing we're experiencing in the toy aisle, which is the people who have the means to spend all of their time researching these things, finding out when they're being available, what websites they're going to be on, and then be there for that moment or have the computer do it for them. They're the ones who come out ahead with all the product. But I will say this about the shipping when we order online. There are companies like Entertainment Earth, for example, when you order from them on the website, their guarantee is that it arrives in mint collector quality. They also have a thing where you can order, and they'll say it's going to come with a bank card or the box is going to be that. But those are for the people like our friend JR who are openers. You actually can place an order for products that costs less if you're not worried about it being mint or arriving mint. That's a choice they give you. And I think it's a brilliant thing because even when you get the package from Hasbro, and this is something that I experienced, working in the retail, is even when you got case fresh stuff from Hasbro, stuff will be damaged in the box. That's the nature of shipping. We could say in general, like for the mass produced line of toys, they've got them in a warehouse. The guy throws them in a box. They come to you trash. Okay, great. But if a company is going to engage in the process of negotiating with Hasbro to create an exclusive product for them that is intended for collectors, then they should have the self-awareness to handle those items with a little better care than they would a box of toilet paper or whatever.
Our discussion has come to an end. Galactic Initiative will tackle these and other issues related to toy collecting in more detail in an upcoming show. Thank you, David.
Close the blast doors.
Thank you, Sean.
These aren't the toys you're looking for.
For now, we leave you with a few parting thoughts. Those with resources will always have advantages over those without resources. Capitalism is not the enemy here. However, advantages once meant being the first to get a toy, not excluding others from getting a toy. And as far as I know, kids have driven this market, so let's allow the kids to actually see the toys. Yes?
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.